Uh, um... And the village was completely burned down. 10 were injured, 3 most likely fatality, and 2 children were killed. King Todoroki nods, his hands supporting his chin as he sits on his throne. His eyebrows are furrowed, but otherwise, his face is expressionless. The room is quiet. You and Shoto stand near the wall, watching the scene unfold. Endeavor does not look happy about his large and most productive village being burned down, especially on the day of the farmer's market. His mouth curls into a frown, showing his disapproval. What of the culprit? The king's voice booms through the hall, and it's clear he's, becoming upset. The culprit? Duke Calamon shudders. Has not been found. Duke Calamel, although a man of short stature and meek appearance, is the only man who has served so long under the foresome king Todoroki. Still, after 10 years of service, he still shudders when asked a question by the man. King Todoroki scoffs. Well, I want them found immediately. Any lead we have now? The Duke nods and reaches to his pocket. The evidence we have, he mutters, is this. In his hand was a burnt wooden figure smudged with dirt and ashes. You recognize it immediately. The scarred man who did this. You knew. You just hadn't told anyone yet, for fear of being blame shifted. Perhaps the king may even blame you. He is unpredictable, but the man must be punished. You know that. So why is it so hard to speak up? Shoto, you whisper and tug on his sleeve. I have an idea. Meet me in my room in 5. He nods, and the meeting is finished. The massive door closes, and you and your fiancé depart. You can hear the king talking to himself as you leave the room. You go to your bedroom and pull out a paper and pen. Perhaps, you think, we can gather more suitable evidence, but how? 5 minutes later, Shoto arrives, Takashi smirking behind him as he closes the door. This is the one of the many times you've been alone with Shoto. So why is it different now? Why is your heart racing? I'm not pretending. You blush thinking of his words, but shake your head. This is not the time. Shoto, you smiled. Remember when the scarred man approached Izuku? The young man nods and sits beside you at your desk, his eyes scanning the paper you place in front of him. Why would he do that? Izuku is a commoner, a mere salesboy. Was it in declaration, perhaps? Something to make him feel like a normal villager? You draw as you speak, a pen dancing across the paper. Shoto watches immediately as you improve a map of the Todoroki kingdom from memory. A good queen must know every shortcut and barrier of her kingdom. Some of your father's advice, I guess, did come in handy. Here's the market, where we were on the day of the fire, you say, which happens to take place in the village of Maiusu, the most productive village in the kingdom. It borders the village of Kizuta, sometimes known as the first village. Know about it. The scarred man came to Mizuwa, brought a figure from Izuku, and then burned the market down where he is his quirk. There were guards everywhere, so where would he most likely be spotted would have fled to? Shoto's eyes lit up, as if he's catching on. The first village. Exactly, you smirk. That's where he must be. It's been 4 days since the incident, but with so many guards patrolling the area, he still has to be there. But why did he buy a figure from Izuku in the first place? Shoto asks. That's the only thing that doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure. You pause. But maybe we can find out? Actually, your guard muses, his gaze directed at King Todoroki. There's something you must know about the first village. What do you mean? You ask. You're with Takashi, who you share the plan with already, and Shoto, waiting for the right moment. King Endeavor sits on his throne, discussing the pile of ashes that used to be the Maizu with the Duke. I mean, Takashi whispers, that not all of Kizuno's history is written in these books, at least, not the ones available to you. But wait, who would know more about Kizuta than we already do? Shoto listens intently at Takashi's continuing. Think about it. The Bakugos used to rule Kizuta before the Brothers' Treaty, of course. So there's things we don't know about its past. Things that wouldn't be written down in our region's history books. But would be in the Bakugos? Takashi, you're a genius, you smiled. Of course, there's things that happened before King Todoroki. I'm gonna butcher Kizuna's name all the time. But Kizuto, things that could relate to the incident, perhaps the scarred man's origins? Shoto smiles at you and Takashi. Well then, let's figure out more. Suddenly, Shoto stands up and clears his throat. Gaining the attention of his father, the Duke Kiliman, they both looked at him quizzically. I have a proposition, father, Shoto says, his voice louder than you've ever heard it. There's something about the way he addresses the king. Something regretful? No, anger perhaps. Whatever it is, it makes you uneasy. There's so much you don't know about Shoto. Still, the king narrows his eyes. Speak. I would like to visit Maisuso with my future queen, Shoto states, his eyes downcast. Shoto? You think? What are you doing? King Todoroki says something, but Shoto interrupts him. And, he snaps, I would like to invite the Bakugos to our palace, including a commoner called Izuku Midoriya, if that wouldn't be too much trouble. The king looks awestruck that his son would ever use such a tone of voice, especially directed towards him. Duke Kiliman repeatedly glances between the father and son, clearly nervous. Well, the king says, looking Shoto straight in the eyes, what kind of father would I be if I didn't let my son have what he wanted 2 weeks before his wedding? What? We still have 25 days? Shoto tenses up, and you begin to stand, but Togashi stops you. He'll be okay, he whispers, eyes trained on the prince. Father, that was not the agreement, Shoto calmly says. The king smiles. With our most productive village turned to ashes, the people have grown reckless. They need a decoration. What better than their dear prince's wedding? I'm sure you only want what's best for the kingdom. The king rests his hand on his fist. Duke Kiliman shudders at the sharp tone in his voice. Right, Prince Shoto? Of course I care about this kingdom, Shoto replies, but I feel it may be a little rushed. King Endeavor smirks. What, your emotions getting in the way again, son? She's a pretty girl and plenty smart. Do you really care? Is there some other reason you won't marry her? You frown. Is there really? Does the king know about something you don't? Shoto is quiet, but the king continues. Very well then. 2 days from now I will arrange a gathering. I will even invite the commoner you mentioned, but there will be a wedding in 2 weeks. Nobody opposes the king. Nobody dares. Shoto starts to leave the room, silent. You follow him with Togashi trailing behind. The room is filled with tension, and you could cut it with a knife. And you're glad you're finally leaving. Once you've all left earshot of the king, you tug on Shoto's sleeve. What are we doing? We're leaving, he says, anger dripping from his voice. Right now, we're going to Maiuso. But it's nothing but ashes. What's the point? You ask. Shoto mumbles something to himself. You can't tell what he's thinking, but you're worried. You've never seen him like this before, not even during previous fights with his father. Takashi, prepare a carriage, he says to your guard. Takashi nods and runs off. Shoto, you plead, gently holding his arm as he avoids your eyes. Are you okay? What's going on? I don't know. He jerks away, leaving your hand empty and your heart heavy. There's something wrong. I don't know. he says calmer this time. His eyes are downcasted and his hands are limp to his sides. Hey, it's fine, you whisper, getting closer to the prince. Nobody really knows, do they? That's something I've learned. Something Hiro would tell me. Your heart aches for your brother. You miss him so much, as you can't even count how long it's been since you haven't seen him. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much you plan, no matter how much you want something to happen, you can't help but think of leaving your family as you speak. Of everything you wished hadn't happened, maybe things would be different. But it's okay. Shoto's face is unreadable. His eyes are locked into yours, and his hands are still at his side. You're both so close. You can feel the heat radiating off his right side, the warmth. We're in this together, married or not, you whispered, and the next thing you knew, Shoto's arms are wrapped around you, everything hitting you at once, his hot and cold, sad and angry, confused, and more than anything, you want to hug him back. So you do. And you both stay like that for what feels like forever, revealing in the warmth of each other and searching, wondering if there's something more between you. Takashi clears his throat. Your Highnesses, the carriage is ready. You both jerk away from each other, startled by Takashi's presence. How embarrassing! You can feel your cheeks turning red and growing warm, and you can't help but notice how the princes are as well. Lead the way, Shoto says, calmer than before. Maybe your prep talk worked, or maybe it was just the hug. You followed the two men outside to a carriage awaiting both of you. Since the king doesn't know about our departure, Takashi chuckles, I'll be driving. Oh boy, Shoto jokes. You can feel the mood starting to lighten up. Takashi is magic, which also means you'll be alone in the carriage. The guard smirks, so please behave yourself. Oh, hush, you say as Shoto helps you up with him going into the small carriage. Mayasu, once a beautiful village bustling with people and joy, now a reminder to the people what dangers lurk in the Todoroki kingdom. People are starting to get angry, Shoto tells you. I can feel it. They've tolerated my father's rule for as long as possible, and I fear Masazo's ashes are a pinnacle of everything they hate about him. You shift in the Kamshin's carriage, seat next to the prince, scared that his words hit home. But you know he's right. What are we going to do, Shoto? You mumbled. We'll figure something out, love, he replies. As you said, nobody can really know the future. You smile at the mention of the nickname he's given you. He's been calling you my love or love every so often, even if you're alone. You can't say you hate it, though. You sigh and look out the window, watching the hills and trees fly by in a blur of green and occasional pink buds of flowers. Suddenly you hear Takashi start to shout, and the horses causing a ruckus. What's wrong? Shoto shouts out the window. No response. Instead, the carriage halts, and you can hear Takashi curse. Something spooked the horses, your majesties. Shoto helped you out of the carriage and rushes to Takashi. The ground is rocky and rough, and you suddenly wish you had worn something more comfortable. The wheel's busted, Takashi says. Whatever the horses saw, it spooked one enough to kick the carriage. The guard pats one of the horses, both looking frightened. There's two, both white as snow, terrified of whatever crossed their paths. Probably a snake or something. Takashi sighs, climbing on one. Looks like we'll take these girls. Musaza isn't too far off. Plus, the king would have my head if I made your highnesses walk back. He mounts the smaller horse and calms her down by stroking her mane. Now, don't be shy, Prince. Takashi gestures to the horse. You two are going to have a ride together. Shoto nods, blushing slightly, and climbs onto the horse, offering his hand to you. You take it and reluctantly climb on. I've never been on a horse before, you say, sort of worried. It's okay, Shoto says. I have tons of time. Well, master of horses, let's go. Takashi laughs. Then his horse shoots off. I'm gonna beat you there. Hold on tight, love, Shoto whispers, and you wrap your arms around his waist. We're not losing.